Hello, I'm Dylan,
And I'm Kiyan.
and this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast that's only gotten marginally better after 1 year of running.
Yes, this is our 1 year special thing because we've been doing this for a year.
One whole year, 53 episodes, though, because of math. Yeah, but yeah, no,
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 it's
it
just because
works
we have one
out.
special.
I think it mostly ended up like that because the first episode went out late. Because we've been consistently releasing on Sundays since episode 2 or 3, I think, and episode 1 didn't go out till like Friday. So,
Yeah. But, I don't know about you, but it doesn't really feel like it's been that long, to me at least.
no, yeah, it's felt like we just started yesterday. That with our very wide variety of sketchy recording situations for the first like 5 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I mean, if you're watching the video right now, you'll notice that we're actually in the same location that we recorded the introduction episode.
Right. With the camera at a different angle.
A better angle, arguably.
Right, we have a list of things we wanted to talk about. Hopefully that plays over well, but
Well, usually when we actually write things down, we usually do get through all the things, at
I
least in
guess.
some semblance of orderly fashion.
Yeah, oh right, we wanted to mention that we didn't get any emails about this.
Oh well, that loyal fan base we thought we had didn't come through for us in the end. No, it's fine. We came up with some things we want to talk about the previous year of Doctor Who and the previous year of Trust Your Doctor, as well as the coming year and hopefully multiple years to come.
Or we just give up. Either or.
No, we
No,
gotta
we're
see it
probably
through
not
to the
gonna
end.
give up.
We gotta see it through to the end now.
Okay, yeah, so the first thing on our list that we wanted to talk about was how the show is developed over the course of a year. And, obviously we started right at the beginning. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I'd say Doctor Who in itself, over the course of the first and second Doctor, has gotten slightly less formulaic.
Yeah,
Was definitely way more formulaic if you look at seasons 1 and 2. First Doctor era was also, definitely a lot more formulaic than the second Doctor. So, essentially just gets less formulaic as they go on. And, when the show started, I guess there was, they were trying to go for that sort of formula where they were going for the historical serials and the sci-fi serials. So,
right.
those definitely had a lot in common. I mean, like, the sci-fi serials were similar to each other, and there were the historical serials, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think they definitely expanded a lot over the second Doctor's run. They kind they wrote out the Daleks semi-permanently because I mean they come back later, but what they assumed at that point would be a permanent change, and then they wrote out the Cybermen for a good while too, and they kind of went for less reoccurring villains. And then when they did reoccur, they went for more interesting stories, I think.
Yeah, the reoccurrences made up more of an overarching plot line. I mean, not necessarily, because obviously it wasn't a continuing story, like with the Yetis and
Yeah.
and everything, but they did feel more overarching with the recurring characters like God, what was his name? The explorer guy. And
Travers.
yeah, Travers, and then Lethbridge Stewart. And those characters reoccurring, it definitely started to feel more connected than like what you'd get in the first Doctor, where it would just be Dalek serials interspersed but not connected. Also, way easier to figure out how everything's put together timeline wise. No guesswork there.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and listen to our Dalek Master Plan episode, where, yeah, we spend, in the supercut, that is, it's in the Mission to the Unknown episode, we spend, like, 15 minutes just trying to figure out the Dalek timeline at that point, because I guess they just, when they were writing the Dalek serials in the first Doctor's era, they didn't really plan to assign any sort of continuity to them, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they just kind of, wrote the serial and then maybe threw in a throwaway line of dialogue that would maybe imply where it falls in their timeline.
Yeah, and that can be partially chalked up to the fact that like during the early days of the show, they didn't know whether or not it was going to get renewed or anything like that, or how popular it would be. So a lot
Right.
of villains were written probably as just one-off villains that weren't meant to reappear. And then when they realized, hey, these villains are super popular, they have them appear again. So you can't really fault them for doing that. It's still nice to see that continuity though now, and hopefully it continues. Hopefully they just don't revert back to how it was before.
Right. And I mean, even at the end of the second Doctor's run, the show is still in fear of being cancelled. As I was reading this morning, that at the end of the third Doctor's first season, they were worried about being cancelled at that point.
Right.
So I mean, even through the second Doctor's run, and even into the third, they're still worried about the fact that if they have like a bomb season, then they could be cancelled, for good.
Yeah, I mean, the danger of cancellation is always there. You can't just fall back onto terribleness and expect to get renewed. I assume.
Yeah.
And the show did get canceled after like 35 years.
Well, I mean, in the end, it just kind of, I guess, fell apart. They kind of started, falling back on subpar serials instead of trying to maintain that sense of quality. And I guess the fact that maybe they were just pressed for time, so they had to cut some things, and then
And it's hard to maintain. I don't want to say the same level of quality because it's not like every serial we've watched so far has been
Right.
super high quality, but it's hard to maintain. It's hard to maintain. How do I want to say this?
a satisfactory level of quality.
That too, but it's hard to maintain exactly what the show was originally going for
Right.
over the course of that many years. So it either has to change. It either changes drastically or it doesn't, and either way, you're going to alienate people in your
Right.
fan base. So it's hard to maintain that viewership over the course of that many years. I mean, there's probably some people who like watched it for 20 years and they're like, you know what? I'm just going to keep watching it in too deep.
Yeah, I mean, and there was probably people who were like, you know what, I mean, the fact that the Doctor changes all the time you always have that fear of alienating viewers every time you introduce a new Doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this when the second Doctor was introduced, that they went for such a drastically different characterization than the first Doctor that it was possible that they would lose a lot of the old viewers. And, that might also play into the fact that it got cancelled it regenerated 6 times in the classic series, and just maybe every time they slowly lost some viewers until the end when there wasn't anyone watching the show anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. And I suppose the way the reboot handles it is better. Or not it's not specifically something they tried to do. I guess it's just that shows nowadays have a lot fewer episodes per season. So the reboot's been running for what, 10 years now, almost
Yeah,
10 years, and there's significantly less episodes than like say when the classic series was in the
Yeah.
same place. So there's still more to. They're in a better position, storyline wise, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess the interesting thing is Stephen Moffat, the current showrunner, said that at this point Doctor Who can never be cancelled again because the fan base has just grown so huge that and the franchise itself is so profitable at this point that the BBC wouldn't even dare to cancel it again because they'd be losing such a huge money cash cow, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, merchandise and the shows themselves is just a massive source of income for the BBC.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see it getting canceled anytime soon.
I mean, it probably will. I mean,
Like years down the line.
yeah, I mean, not like right now. Probably like the classic series lasted for 35 years, like you said, or
Yeah.
somewhere near there. And I could see the reboot going that long, but at some point
See the reboot going longer.
it starts to get stale again, and then I think you need that period of cancellation and then reboot just to kind of cleanse yourself of the
I
kind of
guess
an overwhelming.
that's actually something I was thinking about before, not just in relation to Doctor Who, but like with how many just media franchises there are, like at all. There's always that not necessarily cancellation because not everything's a TV show, but there's always that quote unquote period of cancellation. They reboot something and then
Yeah.
it sort of fades out, and years down the line they'll reboot it again. and it makes you think like, how long is this going to go on? Like, modern media has been around since it's relatively new, like what, the
Right.
50s or 60s, where we really started getting, the modern pop culture stuff that people know today.
Right.
And it's continuing on until today. And like, I don't know, it just makes you think like, how long is that cycle going to continue? Not that it's necessarily a bad or good thing. It's just something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you look at that chart and it's like the top 10 Hollywood releases of every year, and then you see like every year that list has been getting more and more sequels on the list rather than original properties, so to speak. I mean, not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing either. I mean, if you're going to reboot something, it has to be good. Like when they rebooted Doctor Who, it was good. I mean, if they had picked up the reboot in 1996, I'm sure that would have been terrible because I've heard that TV movie was terrible. And they planned to just completely rewrite all of Doctor Who canon at that point with that show, and I'm sure that would have alienated pretty much all of the old viewers and probably would have just been
A mess.
probably would have been a mess, yeah. So, I mean, there's always that risk when you're writing a sequel or rebooting something that if it's bad, and even if you think it's good, it can be bad to the viewers because the viewers obviously hold some sort of expectation for the show.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, that's kind of where that's leading. That's what we experienced over the previous year when the first Doctor regenerated. And now the second Doctor's regenerated. That episode will go out the day after this.
Yeah, but I mean, speaking of expectations, what did you expect going into Doctor Who in the first place? Well,
the classic series,
yeah, the
obviously.
classic series.
Well, having watched some of the reboot, I expected it to actually be terrible, and I was pleasantly surprised when it wasn't. And that's not actually a lie. I went into this thinking I was gonna watch it for the hilarity value, like when you watch bad movies, you're like, oh, that's funny because it's so bad. But I'm actually surprised. There's a lot of good plot lines. There's a lot of storylines that really draw you in. I mean, there are a lot of bad ones too.
Yeah.
But I was surprised at the level of quality that they pulled off, and even though the special effects are pretty campy, it's not like I don't feel like they ever detract from the experience because I just think it was that was the culture of the show, so to speak.
Yeah. Sometimes you can actually appreciate it too, because sometimes, a modern movie or TV show can have sort of a subpar plot line, but actually wow you with its visuals. But with this, obviously, it just can't. It just flat out can't.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting to see how the show carries or is enjoyable even still, just based solely on the plot lines. Because obviously the visuals aren't doing anything for it.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, obviously, or I've mentioned before that I hadn't watched Doctor Who before the classic series. I knew what it was, I just never watched it. And so the first Doctor was also my first Doctor, and it's interesting. I mean, I've watched like shows from the 60s before. I've seen episodes of like the Twilight Zone and stuff like that, but I've never actually like sat down and really watched something this old. So yeah, it's definitely a look into how things were back then, like we were talking about with the visuals and the cinematography and all of that. How it's just so different than what you'd see in something today, and I kind of expected it to be subpar. Also, I mean, I didn't expect to like it as much as I do, and I guess that when you watch something for as long as I've watched Doctor Who, which has only been a year, but it's been so many episodes,
Right.
You do start to become attached to it. And I mean, even if the show was worse than, even if the show was as, I don't want to say as bad as I expected, because I didn't expect it to be flat out terrible. I just didn't expect I didn't expect it to be good, but even if it wasn't, I feel like I still would have ended up pretty attached to it after so many episodes, if that makes sense. I said that in a really convoluted way.
Yeah. And I think one of the cool things about this show is that every time the Doctor regenerates, you always spend basically the whole next season going, this guy isn't the old guy. I want my Doctor back type thing. Like I know when 10 regenerated, I couldn't accept Matt Smith as the Doctor for like a good season and a half. But every actor brings their own spin, and I'm excited to see all the classic Doctors go through and how they all bring their own kind of thing to the character. And I know when I went into the show and I saw that William Hartnell was the Doctor, this old grumpy guy, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. You know?
Yeah, that's actually interesting because it's probably going to be the converse for me when we get to the reboot. Like I started with William Hartnell, so to me, the Doctor is like the grouchy old man,
Right.
and Troughton isn't necessarily that, but he's not like the newer Doctors are like way younger and presumably more active and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and Troughton is closer to what Hartnell was.
Right.
So for me, it's going to be like kind of the opposite when we get there.
Yeah. I mean, even an old actor can be enjoyable. Like I'm enjoying Peter Capaldi quite a bit right now. And I think
Yeah,
it'll
I
be
mean
interesting
Troughton's
when
pretty
you get
amazing.
there to see what you think of Capaldi as an older actor compared to like we had Eccleston, Smith, and Tennant, who are all relatively young.
Yeah, and I mean Capaldi's favorite Doctor is second Doctor. So
Yeah, 1 through 4 and whatever. Capaldi was a big fan when he was young. Wrote fan letters to the show and everything. They sent him 2 scripts from the show too,
what?
because he was part of the fan club. But yeah, I'm looking forward to. I don't think I'd be. I didn't realize that I'd be looking forward to watching the episodes as much as I am. Like I usually actually enjoy like when I'm at home, 9 o'clock at night, when I
Yeah.
pull up Doctor Who. I'm like, all right, time for Doctor Who. Here we go.
Sometimes it's kind of grating. Like if it's a bad serial, you're like, yeah. If it's a bad serial, you're like, yeah. I guess I'll
Yeah,
watch Doctor Who now. But yeah,
but I think you always go like, well, at least next week we've got something new type thing.
yeah, you can always do that. There's always next week because just yeah. God,
Well, I mean, yeah, it's
we've already gotten through a year of it,
yeah, and we've still got like 3 to go. So
and then there's the audio dramas.
audio dramas are, I guess, easier to get through because you can listen to them while you're doing something else. Like I could listen to them while I'm walking my dog, because that's usually when I listen to like podcasts and things. So
Yeah,
going down the list, we're about halfway through the list at this point. It's third on the list. How Trust Your Doctor has changed. I guess we kind of just want to look back on how the show itself has changed, what's changed with the format,
like
things like
Doctor
that.
Who itself, I'd say we've gotten a lot less formulaic. Well,
We
I'd say
do-
we've gotten
we tend to break from, we have a formula, but we tend to break from it more often than we did when we started.
yeah.
And I mean, if you've listened to the show, you know that formula is usually summarize the episode and then discuss things in the episode. But as of late, we've been tending to dive into the discussion midway through the summary, which I guess could be confusing for some people.
I
But
guess that's what we were aiming for when we originally started the show. I specifically remember after the first episode discussing with you, like, hey,
Yeah.
we should probably do the whole commentary ish thing while we summarize. So it's not just two chunks of
yeah,
the same
we
thing.
wanted it to kind of flow through the episode. We didn't want you to have to feel like you're listening to a very set kind of thing where it's like, okay, now this part's done, now we're moving on to this and in this.
Right, we
And
want it to depend on the serial too.
yeah, I mean, and I think we've still got improvements to make. We can still improve on the fact that we could make our summaries less confusing. But I think that's just a virtue of the nature of the show, that it's hard to explain a visual medium in an audio way.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and if you listen to some of our earlier episodes, you can tell we were still trying to figure our way through how in depth we wanted to go with the discussions, as well as what we wanted to mention and how in depth to go in the summary. But we kind of we've basically got it to a formula at this point that we tend to break a lot, but
Yeah, I
the
mean,
evolution of the show.
we'll see how things change from here on out. Probably slowly, like they have so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not a quick thing.
Yeah,
We've
it
been
doesn't have to be.
yeah, as long as people enjoy the show, then we'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
Jeez. I think we were talking about this a couple weeks. I think when we started, we wanted to try at least attempt to sell the show as a serious attempt at explaining the episodes, at least for like a week or two. And I think at this point we've just given up on all effort at doing that.
Well, we're not professional reviewers.
Most definitely not.
If you're listening to this for a cold hard media review, you're in the wrong place.
There's that one fan who's like, "Darn, I believed in them." No, definitely not. We're just two guys watching Doctor Who. I mean, it even says that in our description on iTunes and YouTube. Just two guys watching Doctor Who. I mean, and that's actually just what the show is.
Yeah, pretty much. It's really not much more than that, despite whether efforts exist to try and make it seem more than that. Do they? I don't know. Yeah, I think that moves us on to our last point, which is where the show goes from here. And I think we want to talk both about Doctor Who and Trust Your Doctor.
Right.
So obviously, in terms of Doctor Who, we're going into color, we're going into the Third Doctor, and we're going into the 70s.
Yeah. That pretty much sums that up. I mean, that should cover all our bases on everything we should expect from the show coming forward, right?
Well, no, personally, I'm looking forward to the transition to color, like I said, because black and white had its charms, but I'm ready for color.
Yeah, I mean, after a year of black and white, I think it's just time we got forth to the color era.
Right.
And then I guess Trust Your Doctor is moving forward as it always has, releasing every Sunday. Maybe you live in a weird time zone where it actually comes out on Monday for you, but it does come out 9 a.m. Sunday mornings where we are, so that, for pretty much every time zone, that should still be Sunday. But yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you haven't noticed we go out on Sundays and you just check like randomly throughout the week, like, oh, I wonder if the new Trust Your Doctor episode went out. Goes out on Sunday.
But yeah, I mean, where the show goes from here, also, like we were saying, I think we also still want to work on integrating the sort of two aspects of the show that we were talking about before that we've, I guess, subconsciously worked on throughout this year. We've gotten better at integrating what we wanted to commentate on about the show into the summary that we always do.
Yeah.
So hopefully that becomes more seamless.
Yeah, I think we want to try use the YouTube channel for more things. I think we want to try put up some unique content on there that you won't find on the website, something that can only be done as a video, that only makes sense as a video. I don't know what that's going to be yet, but yeah, look for that over the coming year. I think we want to try get some guest stars on the show too at some point, just to bring in some other voices, because I'm sure it gets really boring listening to our opinions, because, you know, our opinions probably don't change that much from week to week, and I think it would be interesting to get on like a third voice every once in a while.
Right. I remember we were talking about contacting Peter Purves a while ago. Yeah, that never happened.
Yeah, but I mean, we want to try expand our fan base before we get any of the big name actors on. But
yeah, of course.
Until then, I think maybe we'll reach out to some other fans of Doctor Who,
yeah,
both locally and not locally, to get on this show, just as kind of a new voice to hear, new viewpoint type thing.
And I mean, now that we're done with reconstructions, we don't have to force anyone to sit through those.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll probably plan out the guests to be on a week where it's only like a 4-episode serial or something short that they can knock out pretty quickly without taking up too much of their time type thing.
Yeah.
But definitely want to do that this year. Basically, we just want to gradually make our operation bigger. We want to expand. We want to get a bigger fan base type thing. I mean, we don't mention our fan base size, which is probably a good thing. Because, I mean, we're not going to tell you if it's large or small. We did, like, way back in episode 18 or something, but we don't anymore. And we would still like to get it bigger, obviously. We'd like more people to listen to the show, and we'd like to reach more people.
Right, and I mean, that all ties into our ultimate goal of world conquest. Oops. No.
Giving it away every time, Kiyan. Every time. No, but... And, I mean, I think the goal of that is just more fan interaction, because we'd like more fans to kind of interact with, have them email us, ask questions. And that goes along with the guest thing, bringing on new viewpoints into the show. I mean, like we always say every week, if you have a question, comment, or concern, email us. Even if it's something really minor in the episode that you saw if you're watching along with us, you know.
Or if you do fan art or fan fiction or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Both of
we'll
those
be
too.
happy to read that. I mean, I won't if it spoils anything for like the reboot, but
I mean, yeah, if it's a spoiler we want, we try to keep the show relatively spoiler-free for the reboot, and we try to keep ourselves relatively spoiler-free for any of the coming classic series and coming reboot
it
episodes
usually
if you're
doesn't
Kiyan.
work.
It works. We did pretty well with the whole Zoe, Jamie, Dr. Rideout thing.
Are we now mentioning that we actually knew when Jamie and Zoe were getting written out?
We didn't know Zoe was getting written out.
You did, like a week before it happened.
That's true, but I only figured that out like when I was watching the first part of the serial.
Okay, I guess.
I mean, we did pretty well in not spoiling for ourselves that that's when they went out. Like we didn't find out till like maybe 2 weeks before the serial.
I guess.
Compared to
yeah.
like Steven, who
Yeah.
you found out like 2 months before,
Yep.
not only when he went out, but also how.
Yep.
So that's kind of where the show's headed, I guess. We want to polish up the website a bit more, which is something
Yeah.
on my end, I guess, since I'm webmaster, I suppose. Just want to make it slicker. Slicker's a funny word. Maybe we want to start more podcasts. Like we mentioned we were going to way back in episode 5.
I think it was 3, actually.
It was 5 because the title was 3 End. Because we had mentioned that the podcast
Oh,
had
right.
something
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
with
yeah, it was 5.
Yeah. I don't know why I remember that. That's kind of just based on whether or not we have time. I think
We haven't over this past year.
yeah, it just hasn't been optimal to do that. But if this coming year, if that comes up, we'll let you know. We may or may not be starting another podcast,
Watch another year go by and we still haven't done it.
which is fine. I mean, it's just kind of a time constraint thing.
Yeah.
This is our main focus anyway, since this goes out weekly, and this is kind of our main time sink at this point right now.
Yeah.
Besides, obviously, doing work for college and things. But I think that wraps this
No,
up.
I think this is my main time sink in general. Like, I probably watch more Doctor Who than I do anything else.
Wow, you
at
probably
this
shouldn't
point.
mention that. No, yeah, that's why I usually only watch at like 9 at night, because I get all my other work done before I watch Doctor Who, because I don't want to have to like watch Doctor Who and then go back to working. I usually save this as my me time at the end of the day, but anyway, like we said, email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Website has been a little bit updated. We now have a static front page instead of just a list of all our episodes that has the intro episode up. If you have any friends that you want to try get into this podcast, or you think if they like Doctor Who and you think they may like this, or if you just have people who like to laugh at silly things like we do, direct them to the website or our YouTube channel, which is also Trust Your Doctor, and then iTunes, we were Trust Your Doctor. Leave a rating on iTunes if you like the show, because that helps.
Right, check us out on Facebook, too. Obviously, still at Trust Your Doctor. And, that wraps this up. So, we'll be going into the next year now.
Boldly going forth. Oh, gosh.
We're no...
Wrong television show.
I was going to say Whovians, but I don't really like that term. But yeah, until then, the end.